Well, what we're doing here today is we're going through what's called the strategic marketing analysis, which is basically the presentation part of the matrix marketing sales system. Now, it's about, the one that I have here is 41 slides long. The way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to call out, I wouldn't do this if we were really doing a presentation, but what I'm going to do is I will call out the slide number in advance so that you can follow along with a printed out version, and you'll be able to look at exactly what we're looking at. And all you're really going to be picking up out of this is just my presentation part of the presentation here. So, and Desiree's going to help me. We've changed a lot of the information in here, but so that it's fictional, let's say, and we're just going to go through it, and this is the way that a presentation should flow. Well, Desiree, first of all, thank you for taking the time here last week whenever we went over all of the questions in the questionnaire part, that client form that we filled out and all of those questions. I really appreciate your upfront honesty in going through those. We covered so much information in there, and what I've done today is I've put together a presentation for you. It's kind of multifold. I promised to put you together a marketing plan, which I did. What I also did here is I have some good information for you that you can use, because a marketing plan just is not about what we sell. It's about all your different marketing that you had out there, because you had some other things that you wanted to take a look at as well. Right. And what I wanted to do also was, if you're going to do some of those, I want to give you some instruction and some guidance on how to do that. So what we're about to look at is a complete marketing plan, and along at the end, a recommendation that I have for you if you were to want to do some advertising with us. So,
sounds good.
You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, you know, we always have to start out with the, I have to put my glasses on because I can't see too well. So hope you don't mind me looking over the glasses. But, you know, the obligatory, intro page here. But more importantly, right past that, whenever you and I sit down, you told me a lot of information about your business. I mean, a lot of probably private and confidential information about your business. At the front of here, I put a privacy policy statement. I want to make sure that you know that anything that you told me on that day, I am going to keep it to myself. It's in here, and after I'm done, I'm going to give this to you. Okay. At the same time, though, here at our station here in Waco, we operate just a little bit differently than the other folks here in town. We take the time to truly become a consultative salesperson, if you will, to go through not only just coming in and selling what we have to sell, but also wanting to, more importantly, sell what you have to sell. So we have information that we've put in here, and the way that we put together our marketing plans and whatnot. And I just want to make sure that that part of this conversation is also kept between us. So there is some information in here that's proprietary to us. So I want to know that I've got a commitment to you, and I hope you have a commitment to me.
Absolutely.
We'll slip on past page slide 2, and we'll go to slide number 3. What I wanted to do, first of all, don't freak out or anything here. It may look like a lot. We're going to cover about 12 different points today. Okay. But we're going to go very quickly. Again, I'm going to leave this with you. And in leaving it with you, you can come back and you can refer to it, and you can take a look, and you can, polish up on what you need to polish up on. But we're going to move through this somewhat quickly because I know your time is valuable. So we're gonna start going through here. But this is some of the different areas that we're going to look at: market definition and timing. We're going to talk a lot about branding. We're going to talk about some marketing tool strategies. And then at the very end, what we'll end up with is something that I call the critical path, and I'll tell you about that more here in a minute. Okay. So looking at slide 4, this is something that I learned years and years and years ago. It was taught to me by a guy named Roy Williams. He's a best-selling author. People know him as the Wizard of Ads. If you ever get a chance, I would recommend. He has 3 books out. I would recommend you read those books. Okay. It'll give you a lot of insight on what marketing and advertising is truly all about. But in one of Roy's teachings is something that he calls the advertising performance equation. And I want to talk about that so that I can truly explain what both of our roles will be in going forward. The first part of this has to do with, it says MRF. And all that means is marketing reach and frequency. You know, and reach, just to make sure we're both on the same page, is how many times reach is how many times I touch a person. So the total number of people that we reach out and that we touch.
Okay.
So that's our reach. Frequency is how many times we touch that individual person over and over and over.
Okay.
You have to have both a combination of marketing reach and frequency in order to have a effect on a person's on a person's buying habits, on you know what they're going to how they're going to conduct themselves in the marketplace. Okay, and that brings us to share of voice. Share of voice. So what exactly is share of voice? Well, I'll give you an example of share of voice. So in one of the markets that I worked in was in Beaumont, Texas, and about 3 or 4 of the trial lawyers who were part of the tobacco settlement from way back when, they lived there in that market. Needless to say, they had plenty of money to spend on advertising. They probably spent, I don't know, $20,000, $25,000 a month. It was a big number. So here's the deal. If you're in that market and you're an attorney and if you do not have a substantial budget, then I would probably not recommend that you be on television, because here's the deal. These other guys, they're all screaming so loud that if you come in with, you know, a $1,500 a month budget or something like that, it just you wouldn't have enough share of voice out there in order to make a difference. So does that make sense? I hope that it does. The next thing we're going to take a look at is impact quotient. And what impact quotient is that basically is how impactful your message is. Remember a while ago I said something about it's always more important what you say rather than where you say it. So we have to come up with a good message. You know, we could buy a spot in the Super Bowl, and if we have a crummy message, well, it's not going to be effective. It's not going to move or persuade anybody to, you know, change their buying habits or purchase from you. So we have to make sure that the commercial message that we come up with has a very good impact quotient, that is it is impactful. So PEF, we're going to come back to that in a second, but let's talk about market potential. We already know the market potential is out there, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. There are plenty of people out there wanting to buy spa services, salon services, all the different things that you offer. There's enough market potential out there to make us all fabulously wealthy. So we've got that coming. We know that's there. Let's go back to PEF, and that stands for Personal Experience Factor. Now, I can put together a schedule that gives you plenty of market reach and frequency. We can make sure that you're going to be spending enough to have an adequate share of voice. We can also craft a message that'll give us a very high impact quotient, and we know there's plenty of market out there, but here's the deal. This personal experience factor, that's on you. When they come in and they do business with you, they're going to have to receive that experience that is incredible. And here's the thing, I know that that's going to happen because whenever I was here before, we took some time, we toured the spa, it was all there. So the reason I tell you this is I just want to make sure I can take care of 4 of these items, but one of them's on you. So you're in charge of that item. And I want to bring something else up here too. Whenever we look at this advertising performance equation, notice there's multiplication signs in here. Now, if we get a 0 in any of these areas, multiplication times 0 gives us 0, so we're out of business. So we want to make sure that we're hitting on every single category here in order to do a good job. And again, this advertising performance equation, what it does is multiply all of these 5 pieces and parts of the puzzle, and that equates to sales volume. Now, down below it, there's some other definitions below. I'm going to leave this with you so you can look this all over, but it talks about what share of mind is. It talks about market share, you know, how that equation actually looks there, and it talks about sales volume. So I'm going to leave this with you. You can look that over, and we'll go from there. So let's get more into the meat of the presentation here, into the proposal. Market size estimates. Whenever we look at, in 2015, the spa industry was a $16 billion industry nationally. The salon side of it was a $22 billion industry nationally. I took those numbers, I did some multiplication here. I know how many people there are in this market, and basically I just trended these numbers down so that they have so that we can come up with a good local number. Again, it was the number that we had discussed before. You have an amazing amount of revenue in this market that you could be capturing. And I went out there and I did a little bit more research. It said that a spa or a salon, basically your trade area is defined by about 10 to 15 miles around your business. And whenever you look at the population around your business of 10 to 15 miles, huge. We're going to be in good shape there. One of the things they brought up was talking about population density. If the density around in the market that you're in, if it is a very dense market, that 10 to 15 mile trade area shrinks down to somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6 to 10 miles. But again, we don't have that concern, so we're looking at a trade area of about 10 to 15 miles. So I hope that makes sense there. Let's talk about your monthly peak sales patterns for day spas. So one of the things, whenever we got together originally, we had a discussion. We talked about, what were your best-selling months, and what do you know? I went out and I did some research, and I found out that your best-selling months actually match up with the national trends. February, May, June, November, December, those are all great selling months. Those months there, if we look at February, it has to do with Valentine's and gift certificates, things like that. May and June, lots of weddings, Mother's Day, even looking at some Father's Day type things going on in there. In fact, I saw some good creative ideas for using Father's Day as a way to capture another piece of the business. And then November and December, we're looking at gift certificates. We're looking at people, getting all dressed up to go to your Christmas parties and things like that. So those are our peak selling months. Now, in those months, we say, shoot the birds when the birds are flying, I guess you would say. These are the months that people are buying. During those months, we want to make sure that we're running a little bit heavier, so that we can take advantage of those good selling months. These other months, we're going to be doing something that'll be more of a maintenance or a normal schedule month. So it's important for us to always be on. Consistency, which we'll talk about in a minute, is key. But these are the months, these 6 months here are going to be the months we're going to focus on. Overall business goals. Whenever we got together, you and I, we had a discussion, and you really knew what you wanted to do, what you wanted to accomplish. The first thing was talking about developing your primary service area. That was really, really key to you. In fact, the number that you said you wanted to increase by was 15% annually. I think that's a reasonable number, especially whenever I look at growth trends throughout the spa industry. I think you're not. I think it's aggressive, but it's not overly aggressive. So I think you're fine. Expanding the size of the pie, of course, that talks about market share, and there's some great opportunities out there. As we have talked about, one of your largest competitors recently went out of business, and it wasn't for a lack of customers. It seems that it was for other reasons. But anyway, creating a pent-up demand for special services. We'll talk more about this here in a while, but one of the things you brought up the other day was a vampire facial, which I'd never heard of. That is definitely, it's kind of cutting edge spa treatment, but it is something that we're going to have to create a demand for. There's not a lot of people that are going to walk in and say, yeah, give me the vampire special. So I think you know what I mean there. Build brand awareness and establish an image. Right now, we have no brand. We have no image other than to just the customers that use us. And we're wanting to go out there and create that brand. And that's why it's so important, and we'll talk about that in a moment, that we define that brand and we manage that brand at all time. And then you said something with me about the other day whenever I was here, you said something kind of in passing, and it stuck with me. And it says, you said, I want to give my technicians a bonus at the end of the year. And that seemed to be really important to you. And so I put that down as an overall business goal as well, because I know that you brought it up and I heard you, and that was important. So I want to put that down as a goal as well. Competition analysis, as we take a look, who is our competition that's out there? The folks that as I did the research here, Echo Blue, which seems to be a chain, is out there. A company About Face, Oasis Day Spa, Aluna Skincare, Highlight Spa, Vitology, and one of the things that we had talked about was, so we did your initial assessment whenever we filled out the questionnaire was on July 22nd. Oddly enough, on the 25th, your largest competitor in the area, Canyon Oaks, closed down. So I guess you'd say we, have an area of opportunity there because they were the largest, and those people are going to be looking for somewhere to go. Now, granted, they are far outside of your trade area, but that's really not a concern because, again, you have some pretty special services here, and so perhaps we can capture some of those. As we looked at the strengths of your competitors, you were talking about the Canyon Oaks advertising because people do drive quite a ways to go to that spa. The chain stores, they should be a concern because, usually if you have a chain store or a franchise, those people have a little recipe and they figured something out. And you do have one of those as a competitor. So that is something to keep an eye on. The location, several of your competitors have a much better location than you do. And then lastly, they're less expensive. You straight up, they're less expensive than you are. But there's, some reasoning behind why your prices are the way they are, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Weaknesses of your competitors, inexperienced staff. I went out there and I started looking at some of the Yelp reviews and some of the Google reviews on some of your competitors. First of all, I was shocked at some of the things that were being said. Number two, the people were not responding. These companies were not responding to those negative feedback that was out there. And let me just say this now. You need to pay attention to that because people are making decisions nowadays based on reviews. It's huge. And in fact, you need to make sure that people are giving you good reviews and be active in asking for that. Inferior services, that's some of the weaknesses that are out there because people aren't happy with their services. They weren't happy with the service, they weren't happy with the technician. Lack of latest technology. You all are doing the vampire facial. I guess that's a big deal there. But I saw some of your other technology that you have here, and it's really quite amazing. Especially whenever we get into the side of the business that the aesthetic side, the medical spa side of it. You guys are light speed ahead of your competition. Complete services, like one area you talked about was weight loss. You're about to expand into that area. You said something over and over again the other day whenever we were going over the discussion. You were talking about, it's not just about outer beauty, it's about inner beauty as well. Well, it's all one and the same, and weight loss is certainly a part of that, and I'm glad to see that you all are expanding into there. And then you talk about the facilities themselves. I've toured your facilities, and they're amazing. You have an amazing operation here. Your people, professionals, they act like professionals, they dress like professionals, they speak like professionals. So you have an outstanding facility here. What we need to do is, I was trying to look, and this is a work in process, but we need to find out, we really have to differentiate you from your competitor. I always say if two people are doing the same thing, one of you is not necessary. So, what makes you different? You're a full line spa. Nobody else around here. Canyon Oaks was, but they're gone. So you're a full line spa. You have the best facility by far, and you have the latest technology, and you have the best technicians. And I see that just in the reviews that you get online. So you've got a lot of things working in your favor. We want to make sure that we capitalize on those items right there. Does that make sense? And I hope that it does. Marketing posture. This was something that was shown to me years and years and years ago, and it actually came out of a book called Marketing Welfare. There's basically 4 types of marketing postures out there. There's a defensive posture, an offensive posture, a flanker, and a guerrilla. Let's talk a little bit about what each of these is. And again, I'm going to leave this with you so you can read over it, but it's important that we establish where we're going to be as far as our marketing posture. A defensive posture, what's that look like? That looks like Coca-Cola. You're so big, you're so bad, you own so much market share that basically you just outspend your competition and you just own what you want. The next part of this is the offensive posture. Look at that would be like Pepsi. What does Pepsi do? They attack the person and they attack Coca-Cola, taste test and things like that. Take it to the next level is a flanker. What does a flanker look like? Well, let me give you this as an example. So we talked about Coke being the defensive, Pepsi being the offensive, and we're talking about the flanker now. That'd be like 7-Up because they're not the cola, they're the uncola. So they establish a new position. That's what a flanker is. And then the guerrilla, that's just that person that operates out on the fringes, you know, attacks here and there. You are trying to capitalize off of a piece of the market that's small enough not to attract the attention of the big guys. You're just wanting to operate out here on the edge and do a good job with what you do. I'd liken that to like a Fanta. So whenever you go in the grocery store, you have those little flavored drinks in there. That's sort of, you know, a guerrilla would be comparable to Fanta. So the marketing posture that I'm going to recommend for you is the defensive posture. Let's just go ahead, you know, the big guys in town was Canyon Oaks. They're now gone, trying to sell the property and the business and all the other things that come with it. Let's just move into that slot right there and let's just own it. That's what I'm recommending for you. We're going to take a defensive posture. We're going to be the big bad guys in town. We're going to be the big bad boys on the block, I guess you'd say. We're going to own it, and that's what I recommend for you. I want to talk a minute about branding, because whenever I talk about branding, even to marketing professionals, I get all kinds of different answers about what branding is. I don't think not too many people truly understand what branding is. And what I want to liken it back to, I had a guy named, who I talked about earlier, Roy Williams, a wizard of ads. He had a real good explanation about what branding is. It's basically classical conditioning, kind of like what Pavlov did with his dog, where, you know, he would ring the bell and he'd give the dog some meat. He'd ring the bell and give the dog some meat, and he would do that over and over and over. And basically he got it to a point where he would ring the bell, the dog, in anticipation of about to receive a meal of some meat. The dog would begin to salivate, saying, hey, I'm about to get fed. And so what he did was he classically conditioned his dog to salivate by ringing a bell, by introducing the meat into there. That's a really good way to look at branding. All branding really is, and what is, so let me back up a second. What exactly is a brand? Basically, a brand is just a sum total of all thoughts and associations, good or bad, that come to mind when a person says the name of your business. For instance, like, you know, if I say McDonald's, for instance, something just popped into your head about what McDonald's means to you. So the brand is just, again, that sum total of what pops into the head. We need to control that message, but first we need to define that message. And we're gonna, and I've done that here in just a minute. We'll talk a little bit about that. But so in order for us to control it, we have to define it. We'll talk about that. But that is what the brand is, the sum total. We talk about branding. All that is just the act of establishing your defined brand into, you know, the people that you're speaking to with your advertising message. Down here, and again, I'm leaving this with you, branding goals, you know, you know, I said this a while ago, but the conclusion is it just gets back to that central theme that I said it a while ago, and that is it's always more important what you say than where you say it. We will control your brand, and the way that we're going to do that is I've put together a brand positioning statement. This is basically a sentence that defines our brand and what we're going to do with our brand. It was invented by Leo Burnett to back whenever Tide was introduced. I don't know, maybe this thing is 70 years old or something like that. But if you use this brand positioning statement, perhaps as that testing point for all of your messages to make sure that they're on point, that we're driving the same brand time after time. If we use this brand positioning statement with everything we do, we're going to be assured that we're going to be creating outstanding spots, outstanding commercial messages. We're going to make sure that we're going to be on point. So your brand positioning statement is this: to women 21 to 49 in Bell County, that's our trade area, Skin Deep, your company, is the brand of personal wellness and beauty services that is far superior and results in customer services. The reason why is because they are passionate about both inner and outer beauty. The brand character is superior product, value, and service. So from now on, every time that we create any type of advertising message, we need to make sure that that message matches up with what we're seeing here. We're speaking to the person that we want to speak to. We need to make sure that if we're doing any advertising, it's in the trade area, in the area that we want to be speaking to, speaking about the things that we want to speak to that are most important and that we control our brand. So that's our brand positioning statement. Unique selling proposition. You need to develop one. I could have written you one. And what I did was I sent you an email.
Okay.
Or I will send you an email.
All right.
And it's basically 6 steps. I think you're so passionate about your business, I want you to write your own unique selling proposition. Let me tell you what that is. All a unique selling proposition is, as I think about it, it's let's take Domino's Pizza. They've been in a lot in the media lately with all their new technology and stuff.
Sure.
But Domino's Pizza built their business based on fresh hot pizza delivered in 30 minutes or less. What do you do, Domino's? I deliver fresh hot pizza, 30 minutes or less. You know, FedEx, unique selling proposition for FedEx. When it absolutely, positively has to be there overnight. I mean, they built their business on that one sentence. You need to discover what your one sentence is.
Okay.
And you can do that, and I can help you. Like I said, I'm going to send you an email that has 6 steps on it for you to be able to do that with. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Usually I write them for people, but, you know, and this is on slide 13. Usually I write them for the people that I work with, but you're pretty passionate about what you do. So I want to just go ahead and leave that up to you.
Okay.
Taking a look on slide 14 at your target market. You know, we talked about 21 to 49, but we really want to narrow this a little bit more, probably 25, 44. Some of your services are sort of spendy, especially the higher end ones where you have more margin. So we want to sort of narrow that just a little bit more. So as I look at who your target market is, we're looking at women 25 to 54. We're looking at an income of greater than $75,000. That's a household income. Advanced degree, high school education, you know, the kind of things that they're into. General family activities, you know, we're talking to a lot of moms out here.
Sure.
And as we look at who your customer is, that's who it is, so that's who we need to speak to.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that really identifies the person. Let's go one step further now. Right down below it here it says, assuming there are 3 types of customers, which ones will we target? Well, there really are only 3 types of customers. Past customers, new customers, and your customers' customers. Since we're talking about Domino's a minute ago, let me give you an example. Remember here about 2 years ago, Domino's came out with an ad campaign, and it was basically said, hey guys, tell you what, we're sorry we sort of cheaped out on our cheese, sorry we kind of went and used some not so good pepperoni, but we're sorry and we want you to come back and give us another try because we changed some stuff. In that ad, there was no doubt they were talking to a past customer.
Sure.
Because you talk to that customer differently than you do, say, a new customer. So a new customer knows nothing about you. So we have to fill them in a little bit more on what's going on. And then if we're talking to a competitor's customer, getting them to switch. That's a totally different conversation. So we need to make sure that whenever we craft our messages, that the people who we're going to identify with, because you do a good job at retaining your customers. We even looked at your customer relationship management database. You keep your customers, so we need to talk to new customers, and we need to talk to your competition's customers. And that's what we're going to do. Now, don't ever make an ad that you try to talk to both of them in the same ad. It's, you know, pick a direction so we know what we're going to say from back here. We know who we're going to say it to. And now we know a little bit more definition on how we're going to say it. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. So looking here at slide number 15, we're looking at statement of marketing objective. And that was something that you and I discussed in the very beginning. And it really defines exactly what we're going to do, again, with our marketing. The goal of our marketing is to increase sales by 15% versus the prior year. That was the number that you gave me.
That's important.
In the time period beginning October 2016, so that's whenever we plan to launch our campaign, and then ending 1 year later in September of 2017. We'll measure the performance against this goal by actual sales, which you and I have already talked about, and you said that we'll have a discussion about that, you know, whenever we get together. I always think it's important for us to really up front have that discussion about exactly what your expectations are, because I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. That's never what I want to do.
Right.
But then I want to kind of have the game rules put together so that we both know, so that we're both on the same page there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair.
So anyway, so that's what I've done there, is actually just put it together and laid out exactly what we're going to do. Okay. The next few pages I'm going to go through kind of quick. Again, I'm going to leave this with you. Okay. But that doesn't mean that these pages aren't important, because probably some of the most important things that I'm going to say today are coming up in these next pages. Okay. So why should a person advertise? I have 2 pages here on slide 16. I'm sorry, I only have 1 page. On slide 16, I have a page here about why you should advertise. You can look over these, but people forget. There's people moving into the market. There's all the reasons why you should advertise. And I just wanted to put those out here. You know, at the end of the day, our whole goal is to increase your store traffic, to get more people in here so you can make that 15% increase that we just talked about here a moment ago. That's why we advertise. We have to invite more people in to do business with you. That's our stated goal there. Advertising mistakes to avoid. Now, this is on the next 2 pages. On slide 17 and on slide 18, it talks about advertising mistakes that you should avoid. Okay. I even highlighted some of these in red.
I see that.
because they're very important. I'll give you a couple of examples here. Examples: resisting the desire for instant gratification. We're not going to start these ads and your door is going to be overran. It takes time, especially due to the types of ads that we're going to do. Right. Creating ads instead of campaigns. You know, again, we're going to always make sure that we're going in the same direction with all of our ads, because I see too often, you know, we'll come up with good creative ideas, we'll use them for a little bit, and then, you know, you kind of, as a business owner, you're like, hey, let's go in a different direction, let's go in a different, you know, it takes a while to turn the ship, so we just need to stay the course. Confusing results with response, you know, that's like, we already talked about, you know, whenever this ad starts, you're going to have a lot of people that comes up and says, oh, I saw your ad, Desiree. Oh, I saw your ad, Desiree. That's not a result. That's a response. We need, the result is whenever we have people in the door that are paying customers. One of the things you talked about is you have a questionnaire at the front desk that says, how'd you hear about us? Let me give you a little bit of something here. How about, don't do that, because usually all that does is just reveals the last way that they heard about you. So in other words, well, I saw you on the internet, you know? Instead, if you're doing radio, for instance, ask people, hey, you know, have you heard my radio ads? And then if they say, yeah, I have, then let's throw it one step better so that we truly qualify them to make sure that they're telling us the truth, and say, what'd you like about them? That's the better question to ask. Good. Yeah, that's a much better question to ask than how did you hear about us? Because really, I know how I answer that question. You know how you answer that question. Right. It doesn't truly give us the insight we need. Right. So, you know, hey, have you seen our television ads? And you're going to know whether or not they truly have. But there's two pages here of mistakes to avoid. I saved the best for last, and it's consistency. Consistency and consistency is so important. I just can't say it enough. Whatever you do, whether you run ads with me and the company that I represent or with whoever, just do it consistency. That's how you build up equity. It's not an expense. It's an investment. You build up equity, and over time it will pay off. You just have to stay the course. Media comparative, if you're going to do some other media, and I actually have a recommendation in here for you to do some other media, well then I want to make sure that you're properly equipped on how to do it. So what I did, I have direct mail, I have radio, newspaper, local insertion cable, outdoor, digital, and television. What I did, I'm not going to go over this in depth, but I'm just going to tell you. I've put here the strengths, I put the weaknesses. For instance, on slide 20 it says direct mail. I put the strengths, I put the weaknesses, and if you do direct mail, down at the bottom I put a conclusion that says if you're going to do it, here's how you do it and do it right, okay? Because I want to make sure that you don't waste any of your advertising dollars. So direct mail, I did it with radio, same thing. I did it with local insertion cable.
Wow.
And here's the thing, all ad mediums work if they're used correctly with good message. But I put together the strengths and weaknesses and again the conclusion. If you're going to do it, how to do it. Like you have a billboard right now.
Right, I do.
And I said, you know what? Billboards, conclusion, good to use on highways to reach out of town or rural market. And also as a business locator, always use short, high impact messages, never longer than 7 words.
Right.
You know, and you actually had a billboard and you kind of followed a lot of this, but you know,
I had no idea, so I did it right.
well, you did it right, but here's the thing, that for your type of business, billboards probably aren't the best. Because, well,
I'm kind of gathering that.
you can look for yourself. I have some information on here about doing newspaper, a couple of pages, because it's a little confusing. Strengths and weaknesses,
A lot of information.
and then a conclusion. Television, you know, I'm kind of biased, so I'm just going to let you. I'm not even going to talk about it. Same thing on digital. So looking at slide 29, let's now talk about our marketing tool strategy. So whenever I very first got together with you, I gave you a list of what I call the marketing weapons. You circled the ones that you're using,
Right.
and you put a box around the ones that you'd like to use. And so I've included some of those in here. But the marketing weapons and the tools that I'm gonna suggest for you: television, radio, digital. We're going to look at creating you a marketing calendar, because you really need a marketing calendar, so that we can plan everything way out in advance. I mean, it'll help you in more ways than you can imagine. Public relations, you talked about, you know, doing some speaking out there on the benefits and wellness that comes with doing regular spa treatments and stuff. You know, all of these civic organizations, they're looking for speakers. You just have to say, I'm here, and they will call you and they'll use you. And then cause marketing. So much, you know, again, I get back to you said, it's not just about the outer body, it's about the inner body.
Right.
And that says mental to me. And whenever I think about mental, that drew me over to cause marketing. You know, it's very emotional. In fact, the creative that you and I have talked about is very emotional. In fact, you should always use emotion. Emotion is the easiest way to move somebody into seeing your point of view or doing things the way you want them to get it done. I guess you'd say, always take the emotional path. We can use logic, you know, forever and ever and ever, but whenever you tap into that emotional side, that's whenever you're going to get people to change their behaviors. So anyway, cause marketing. We already talked about you do some breast cancer awareness stuff.
Yes, we do.
But we're looking at some other, I put some other ideas on here. You know, again, a lot of the people that we identified, they have children.
Right.
Let's take a look at some of these cause marketing campaigns that has to do with children. And again, I'm on slide 29. Advertising creative. You and I talked about, I usually have creative here, but I don't in this case, because you and I have already talked about a couple of ideas on that, and we're going to talk about that later, and I've already got a date set that we're going to do it.
Oh, good.
We looked at your 2015 and 16 budget allocation. Looks like you were spending about $800 a month, but you're in a different position, and you're going to be, you know, you want to move into becoming a real player in the advertising market.
I do.
And when we had our discussion together, you were looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of probably around $25,000 to $30,000. Well, I don't have your digital portion of what I'm going to recommend for you in here. This is just television and radio, and I'm going to recommend you do some radio. Like we talked about, you want to be in that defensive position back there so you can own the market. So what I've recommended was doing some radio and doing some television. And I split the budget about 70-30. 70% on TV, and I'm on slide 32, and about 30% on radio. And again, you know, I think it all works. All the advertising mediums work if it's used correctly with a great message, and we're going to make sure that happens. This radio, we're going to use that radio to talk to our competitors' customers a lot. Gift certificates, specials, things like that. We're going to do a good job there. So what I did was I went ahead and I put together, now I left room out there because you want to include digital into your overall spend. So we were talking about having about $24,000, $26,000 annual advertising budget. I only used up $17,760. Now, what I did was I came in here. Remember in the beginning we identified those 6 months that are your
Right,
top selling
right.
months, February, May, June, October,
Right.
November, December, here on slide 33. Well, I put those in red, and those are going to be our peak months.
Okay.
Now the ones in blue, those are going to be more of our normal, our maintenance months.
Right.
And I already went ahead and I assigned a dollar amount inside of there so that you would know exactly, how I would recommend, as I
Okay.
told you I was going to do, put together a recommendation on how you should spend your advertising budget.
Okay.
So that's on this page here. On the next page, I've got some information here. I'm going to leave it with you, as I said, that talks about, why I think we're a good alternative for your television.
Okay.
To come on board with us. It talks about some of our programming. It talks about our audience, talks about some research that we have
Okay.
available, especially our REN track. It's now called a program called ComScore.
Right.
I can go in there and I can really dig into some great research that I think will help you out. And that is something you should take advantage of, because I will take care of you on that.
Okay.
I put together, this is a normal monthly schedule here on slide 35. I put together a proposed schedule here for you. It includes our Fox station and also includes our My Network station. And then down here at the bottom, it sort of summarizes exactly, how many 30-second spots you would get. And, and this proposed schedule here is in line with your normal monthly, which is, we look back here, has a total there of $960.
Okay.
So the other one is this peak monthly schedule. That's those 6 months where we're really, when the birds are flying.
Right.
This is the schedule that I would recommend there. It's $1,200.
Okay.
And so everything there looks like it's totally within your budget range. What I wanted to do is I did a little breakdown here, a little analysis. It looks like we're going to be reaching about 440,000 gross impressions out there. And again, that's not, we're reaching 440,000 people. That's gross impressions. So that's how many we'll just be touching.
Okay.
And we'll be touching the same person multiple times.
Okay.
So, because what's important, so 440,000 gross impressions, reaching 96,000 women in the 21 to 49 age range with a frequency of 3.
Wow.
That's going to be a lot.
Yeah. That's
And as we look here, we're going to average 95 commercials. As we go through that, we're looking at an average monthly investment on television of $1,080. That's the average between the $960 and the $1,200.
Okay.
So we're looking at an average spend of $1,080 a month. If we look at that on a week, that's $250. If we look at that on a day, that's $35. I just wanted to really break it down to the lowest common denominator so you could see. I put together a break-even analysis here. So you told me your average sell is about $70. You told me that your gross profit margin was above 50%, but I just went 50% just to put it. So we're making about $35 on each one. Our weekly TV cost is $250.
Okay.
In order to cover our weekly TV cost of $249 with a gross profit per sale of $35, we need to make 7.1 sales off of this. We can do that. Want to know how I know we can do that? Our weekly CUM, that means how many people out there in the market our TV station reaches,
Right.
is about 600,000 people. I've put it here, so that's tenths, hundredths, thousandths. We need 1/1000th of a percent of the people who will be touched by our TV station to walk inside your door. We need a teeny tiny amount to come and do
Yes.
business with you. So we need 7 average sales in order to pay for your. I don't have any doubt that we can do that. I mean,
Okay.
what do you think about that?
I think that's fantastic.
Well
That's
then,
great.
well then, that's what we're looking at there, and that was on slide number 38. I want to talk to you about the annual advantage. There's 6 different things on this page about why people should look at making long-term plans, especially about advertising. I hate it when people read slides to me, but I got to tell you a couple of things on here. Long-term commitments. Whenever we have advertisers who are on board with us, it helps us plan our inventory out there. We
Okay.
pass on some savings and rates to you. You know, the people that are on with us longer, they get treated a little differently, let's say. Okay? So you avoid some higher rates. When you are doing consistent advertising, it gives you this amount of credibility in the market because people see your ads. They start looking at you differently because if you're consistently advertising, you must be for real. I mean, that's sort of the image that you project.
Okay.
It eliminates the monthly burden of having to plan. No longer are you going to have to sit around waiting for these people to walk in your door with their, package of the day. You're going to have it all planned out, so you can avoid a lot of that. It gives you the opportunity to allocate your resources. I mean, you have to have technicians to do this, so you'll be planning. Creates lasting memories and impressions. That's what long-term advertising does. And, it just makes good sense to do long-term strategic planning.
Okay.
So that's why, one of the things we talked about way back whenever I first got together, I said, we need to make the plan, and then we need to get a little bit more in depth on that plan about exactly what we're going to do.
Okay.
This is what I call the critical path. This is everything we're going to do over the next year, all the way from our initial assessment that happened on the 22nd of July. We're here today doing the presentation, the initial creative calendar, marketing calendar meeting, which we're going to put together. This list out, I'm going to leave this with you, but it goes through every single step that we're going to take over the next year.
Okay.
And it puts a month and a date, in most cases, to when we're going to do it. It's important that we do that so that we're both on the same page about what it's going to take to make the campaign successful.
Okay.
So how are you feeling about everything at this point?
I feel great. And is this the calendar? This is
What this is like I said, I call it the critical path.
Okay.
So it talks about, like here, campaign launch. I'm wanting to launch on September 26th.
Okay.
That's
great.
my goal. So that means
the
we need to
corner.
have the campaign completion deadline. That means we need to have all the creative ready by the 21st.
Okay.
And on the 30th, we're going to have our creative meeting where we're going to get together and we're going to talk about our message, and then quarterly follow-up meetings, 8-week evaluation, and maybe a year from now, if I do my job right, we're going to renew it.
Okay.
All right?
We'll see.
So we're all good to this point?
Wonderful.
Whenever I first came in here, I said something, and that was, considering that all agreements are cancelable with a 2-week notice,
Okay.
I said, is there any reason that you wouldn't want to be in a long-term agreement? And you told me no.
Yeah.
You said, no, not really. I mean, not if all I got to do is 2 weeks. I mean, basically, I guess you're writing a blank check for 2 weeks, but
Right.
it's not necessarily blank because we have it all laid out here exactly what we're going to do. But what I did is I put together an agreement here.
Okay.
Now, I do ask that you stay with me for 13 weeks. Yet, that 90-day chickening out period,
Right.
you've got to trust me. You've got to hang with me.
Okay.
13 weeks.
I
But
can do
then
that.
anytime after 13 weeks, if you're not happy, you give me 2 weeks notice and we're done, okay?
That's fair.
So what I did was I put together an agreement here. I laid it out. It's the totals here, $960 for the normal schedule, $1,200 for the peak schedule. I explained to you about, it's an average here of
Okay.
$1,080 a month, $35 average daily client spend on advertising.
Okay.
We talked about, again, the monthly investment of $1,080, average unit rate of somewhere around $11 for the commercials that we put together for you, and we're on slide 41.
Okay.
And basically, it's everything that you told me you wanted to put together, all put together for you.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
what do you think at this point?
I think I'm ready.
You think you're ready?
I think I'm ready.
Well, I'm ready to get going too. And as a matter of fact, what I did was I went ahead and I've made an agreement here. I'm going to leave this with you.
Thank you.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign this so you'll have my signature right here.
Okay.
And get that date on there.
Okay.
And then what I've done is I've got our agreement, and this is yours.
Thank you very much.
And then this is the actual proposal. And
Okay.
when you sign, we'll be ready to go. And then we'll be back on for our creative meeting. And
Great.
we're going to make it happen.
Well, I'm excited, Chris. Thank you so much.